Good evening. As Matt talked about, we are embarking in a new area tonight and a new theme. We're talking about care, and care is one of those wonderful things that we've all experienced, whether we've given care to others or we've experienced care ourselves. And we've all experienced and probably given out good care and bad care. But tonight we're going to, and over the next 3 weeks, we're going to be exploring that from different points of view. We're going to be looking at a biblical framework and foundation and care from the Bible perspective, and then we're going to be looking at caring for others, and sometimes often gets left out is caring for yourself and how we do that. So I'm going to be opening up and providing a biblical framework for it, and then Andrew and I are going to be doing some stuff for other people next week, and then Andrew will be talking about caring for yourselves the week after. So it's a great little tag team effort we're going to be doing here, but let's just open it in prayer. Dear God, we just want to thank you for being with us tonight, dear Lord. Lord, we just ask you to open up our hearts and continue to speak to us as you have been through the worship, through fellowship, through the prayers, dear Lord. Help us to see you in a new way tonight. Let's pray these things in your name. Amen. So as I grew up, I used to love animals. I used to love animals, and I wanted to be a vet when I was a primary school teacher. I thought, when I was in primary school and not a primary school teacher, I wanted to be a vet because we used to have lots of animals around, and I was lucky enough to have a fair few different types of pets. And so we had like different pets, from rabbits to guinea pigs to dogs to cats to fish to lizards to insects. Not all at once, but over different times in my life. And I used to love to get them, but I wasn't too sure how good I would be at caring for them. I wanted a dog for so long, and when I finally got one, the thought of actually having to take it for a walk each day and at night got the better of me, and so my dad ended up doing it. And back in primary school, though, there was a story that me and my friends used to go out into the rocks and catch lizards. And not the little ones, we were talking about blue tongues and shinglebacks and things like that. So we'd have big lizards, and we used to go and keep them for a little bit of time. And so we'd go out every couple of weekends or so, and especially in the summer months where, back in Melton, there's rocks and plains and all that sort of stuff. So you could easily just find them without having to go too far. And so one day we caught one, me and 3 other friends, and so we made a deal. So we couldn't each have the lizard to take each time. And we couldn't you take the back half, you take the front half, and I'll take the middle. We couldn't do that. So we decided, okay, for 3 days, I'll have it for the first 3 days, you have it for the next 3 days, and then we made a little deal like that. And so I was lucky enough to have it for the first 3 days. And so my parents didn't want a lizard in the house, so we had a old fish tank. And I set it up under a tree outside, and I set it up with some rocks and sand and put the lizard in there and put a glass lid over the top. And it was great. And I thought it was good sort of thing. But I really wanted to play with this lizard inside. I wanted to take it inside. So there was an afternoon on the first day when we got it, afternoon when my parents were out. So I thought, there's no shoebox here. I'll take it inside, just for a couple of minutes, just for to see what it's going to be like. And so I took it inside, got the shoebox lid, and I thought, put it on the table, and got it out and had a little play with it. I can't remember what the blue tongue name was at that time, but had a little play with it, and I thought, I've forgotten it's food. Now we got some special snails and worms in the gardens as well. I don't know what my parents did when we dug up their gardens or flower beds to find these worms, but we did. We found these worms, and so, okay, they're still outside. So I'm going to go outside and get it. So it's okay, I'll put the lid back on the shoebox and go outside and get the snails and worms. So I went outside, went to get the snails and worms, come back, and the shoebox lid was off. And the lizard was nowhere to be seen. And so obviously my parents were going out for half an hour to an hour. I thought, where is this lizard? I thought, where on earth is this lizard? Now, I'm sure you've seen lizards climb and do that sort of stuff, but I hadn't. When I was a little kid, I didn't know where it was. And so I'd been looking for 15 to 20 minutes to half an hour for this lizard, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And so I had to fess up. I had to fess up to my parents and say, look, you know that pet lizard I had, I've still got it, but I just don't know where it is. It's somewhere in the house. I have to fess up to my friends and to say, look, let's go out to the rocks again today. Why? I said, the lizard's just gone. So I had to go there. So I had to fess up. And so I didn't really take good care of it. But the worst thing was is that about a week later, I was in the kitchen and I noticed this smell. I thought, what's this smell? So I looked down there, and so we had a drawer where we all put the heavy pots and pans, and I looked down there, I saw half a lizard and some other sort of stuff. So someone the lizard just kind of creeped in there, and when they put the pots and pans and just put them in there without thinking, and all of a sudden there was half a lizard left. So as I said, I didn't really take good care of the lizard that day. And it's just a bit of an opening to say, we've all experienced care in our lives. We've all had care or given care to other people, and we've all known what it is sometimes like to have bad care given to us. And so, when I look at the dictionary, well, I have to turn this thing on? No, I haven't. Look at the dictionary. Care, the provision of what is necessary for health, welfare, maintenance, and protection of someone or something. Now, I didn't do that to that lizard. Now, that lizard, unfortunately, maybe I did it for the first 5 minutes and 10 minutes. I thought, here you are, nice lizard, but I didn't do it. And then we talk about pastoral care. Pastoral care is a wonderful term that we have in churches. And just to explain that a bit further, pastoral care concerns the whole person in their physical, emotional, social, and spiritual aspects. So over the next 3 weeks, we're going to be delving into this sort of areas and looking at how we see it in our lives. See, in all of our lives, we are called upon to encounter care or give pastoral care or experience it. Whether we give it out, whether we need it for ourselves, when other people give it to us, or when we need to look after ourselves. So how should we care? How should we do this? As I said, because we've all experienced bad pastoral care, we've all experienced bad care. And so we need to look at the Bible to say, okay, where are some foundational points of care? How did Jesus care? How did Jesus care for others? How did Jesus care for himself? So that's a journey we're going to be on for the next 3 weeks. And I'm excited for this series because it is something that we don't talk about that often. And especially caring for ourselves and how to properly care for other people. So we're going to look at tonight how the biblical foundations and how Jesus possibly cared. And one image that gets used a lot is shepherding. The image of a shepherd. In John 10, verse 14, it says, Jesus says, I am the good shepherd. Now, shepherding is one of those occupations that isn't around that much in Australia. It is still prominent in other side of the world, but in Jesus' days, it was a legitimate occupation. It was one of those occupations that people had, herding sheep. And there's a pretty good conversation, I heard a story about it, and it says, Israeli tour guide was explaining the scenery, the history and the lifestyle in his description. And he included a heartwarming portrayal of the ancient art of shepherding or sheep relationship. He expounded how the shepherd builds a great relationship with his sheep, how he feeds them and he gently cares for them. He pointed out that a shepherd doesn't need to drive the sheep because they hear his voice, and that the shepherd does not need to be harsh with them because they hear his voice and follow him. He spends time with the sheep, getting to know them, and they get to know his voice. And then we get to explain how one time he was telling this story, he got into the middle of this story, and it backfired on him. Because as he was telling this story, he was passing through a land, and there was this man outside herding sheep. But none of this what he was talking about. He was grabbing a stick, throwing rocks at them, and hitting them and trying to get them all together. And so in the middle of while the Israeli tour guide was saying a shepherd is about caring for the sheep and getting to know the sheep, outside the window, this man was beating them and just trying to herd them all together. And this tour guide got so upset by it, he stopped the tour bus, went off to the sheep herder and said, "What are you doing? I'm giving this great tour guide and I'm giving this great tour to say what the sheep are doing and how a shepherd was." And for a moment, the sheep herder had a bewildered look and froze. And then it clicked to him. He said, "Well, you got it wrong. I'm not a shepherd. I'm a butcher." The poor fellow thought this guy was a shepherd and thought he was caring for them, but he wasn't. He was just getting them together. And as I said, that sort of shows the example of good shepherding and bad shepherding. Sometimes we just think that caring for someone is taking them from A to B. Being a shepherd is taking a sheep from A to B. But it's a lot more than that. Think about what shepherding would have been like in Jesus' time. There would have been no fences, or most of them, there'd be no trucks to transport them from one sale place to the next sale place. They have to guide them, sleep with them, and keep them warm, and then do everything just in an enclosed area. So they stay close to the sheep. See, what we heard about is a bad example, and the terminology of shepherding gets used all the time in the Bible. And one popular one is from Psalm 23. It said, "The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me." I want to unpack some of this imagery in here because it's something that we're really familiar with, the 23rd Psalm. And for some of us who've grown up in the church, we might be able to recite it. And so I love some of the imagery in this psalm. It says, "The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures." Think about what green pastures is for sheep. It's food. It's comfort. It's almost safety. God is leading them and helps them to lead them there. He leads me beside quiet waters. He doesn't force me to quiet water. He doesn't push me into the water and says, "Here, drink." He leads me to it. He guides me to it. Water refreshes our soul. Think about how God refreshes your soul. See, for me, it can be just a simple word. It can be a reassurance. It can be an encouragement. It can be any one of these things. That is God leading us to water. He guides me along the right path for his name's sake. He guides me. He shows me his ways. He shows the ways to go. You know, sometimes when you pray and you get that gut feeling and you say, "Oh, this is the way to go. This is God leading me." Again, it's not like a lead in the colt and he's dragging you along. It's a little nudge to say, "This is it." And probably the next part is my favourite. And even though I walk through the valley of the death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff comfort me. Jesus, Christianity says, when you become a Christian, it's not going to be all easy. It's not going to be smooth sailing. You're still going to have hard times. You're still going to walk through that valley of death. But you know what? I'm here to guide you. I'm here to with you. So do not be fearful. Do not worry about that. I'm with you. See, I know that God comforts me, and this is just some of the elements of care that he talks about. And so how we look at caring for one another and caring for ourselves, and how God cares for us. And when Jesus says, "I am the shepherd," this is what he's talking about. Another strong image of care in the Bible is serving. See, in this one, Matthew 20:28 says, "The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." See, Jesus came to serve. Came to serve us. Came to die on that cross for us. Nothing in return. Sometimes when we care, when we give care, we expect something in return. But Jesus is there now saying, "I'm here to serve you." Serving people is all through the Bible, and stories of it is through the Bible as well. And Jesus does it so well with the women at the well, the woman caught in adultery, and other stories as well that come to mind when you hear about how Jesus cares for people, how Jesus serves people. But then there's a great passage in Matthew 25 where he goes to it a little bit more. And so, then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Then the righteous will answer him and say, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty, or give you something to drink? When did we see you, a stranger, and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick, or in prison and go to visit you?" The king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers or sisters of mine, you did for me." Then he will say to those on his left, "Depart from me, you are cursed, into the eternal fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes, and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison, and you did not look after me." They will answer, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty, or a stranger, or needing clothes, or sick, or in prison? I did not help you." He will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me." This picks up some of the familiar things we think about when we're talking about caring. Some of the practical things, like someone visiting someone, feeding, or just being there for someone. The actual practical being in presence of looking after someone. I heard a pastor once share a story of what they did in their church, and one day a couple of church members were out distributing loaves of bread to a low-income housing complex. They came out of the apartment where they heard someone arguing. They thought maybe we shouldn't go into that house, but they thought, no, we should knock and see what happens anyway. So a man asked to open the door and said, "What do you want?" And one of the visitors says, "We don't want anything. We're just going around to the houses and offering loaves of bread. Would you like some?" So why are you doing that? The man asked. "Just to let know that God loves them." What did he say? The man said rather anxiously, "Well, we're just handing out loaves of bread to let people know that God loves them." The man stared and said, "I can't believe that. We just buried our 3-week-old son, and now you are here at our door?" And the visitors offered to pray with them, and the couple accepted their offer. And they stayed there for about an hour or so, just praying and talking to them. As they were leaving, the door was being closed. They heard the husband say to his wife, "See, honey, I told you God cares. We thought he wasn't paying attention to us, but he sent these people here to make sure that we know." See, this is serving in action. This is caring in action. Sometimes it can be a big thing. Sometimes it can be a small thing, just offering a loaf of bread. It's care in action. See, this couple offered the gift of love just by handing out bread. They were members of a congregation responding to the call of God. See, sometimes in our lives we might be, and in churches we're sometimes guilty of this as well. Sometimes in our lives we leave it up to the paid people or the people that have recognised that they've got the gift of caring. They can do that. But see, caring and serving is part of everyone. We've all got elements. We've all got people around us that we care and serve to. Like the Matthew passage, the book of Acts also gives us some insight of how we might live. And so Acts chapter 2, verses 42 to 48 says, "They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of the bread and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favour of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved." See, when I read this passage, I get a great vision of what the community might have been like. They were out there serving the community, but also serving themselves and helping themselves out. Each one of them were helping each other. It said nothing was doing things by themselves. They were doing it together as a group. And so it wasn't left up to one or two people. Everyone had a responsibility to care for each other. So Ian Bunting once said, where Christ is, the church is. So if Christ is amongst the suffering, then we must, the church, be as well. People in our community, people, our friends and family suffer every day. We suffer every day. And so we need to be on the lookout for people with each other. And we need to be on the lookout for how we are ourselves and tend to care for each other. So I'm wrapping up the biblical framework for this series, and the thing I want to touch on 3 different points here. And the first one is being like God. Our God comes first. And our God comes alongside us when we are down and we are at our lowest point. He comes to show us love. He comes to care for us, be with us and guide us. Not to force us to do anything, but to meet us where we are. And so that could be an inspiration to us when we come alongside other people to meet them where they're at. See, caring is also practical in that sense, as we talked about with the Matthew passage. You know, sometimes we are in church circles and say, yeah, we'll do something for you, or we'll pray for you. And how sometimes we just don't do it. We all get stuck in that rut every now and again. And here it's saying, hey, care for each other. Follow through with your actions. If you want to care for others, it starts by caring for yourself and being in a place where you can care for yourself. And if you're not in a place where you can care for yourself, ask the community, ask friends to care for you. And the third point is done by being grace-filled, not by our own strength. Sometimes we think we can do everything ourselves. But we need to be filled by God to do that. People burn out when they do things in their own strength. So if you want to care for others, it starts with caring by yourself. Not that we have to be perfect, but our relationship with God needs to be strong with that. See, pastoral care is a whole community activity. And not doing pastoral care well. And when we are doing it well, we have a God-focused, grace-filled community that will allow us to grow both socially, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And so when we look upon care and we open up the thinking for care and how we care for each other and how we care for ourselves, we need to be looking at the images of Matthew and the shepherd and the Acts community. And as we look at the next following weeks, and we say how to care for each other and how to care for ourselves. Have those thinking, have those stories in the back of your mind. See, we will build and explore these images in these coming weeks, and we work out how we might effectively care for others and ourselves as we learn to live out our faith, which God has called us to. So let's close in prayer. Gracious God, thank you for caring for us. Thank you for sending your Son to die for us. Lord, we all have that need or desire to care for people, especially the people around us. And Lord, we need to look after ourselves as well. And so when those images come up on how we should do it, let us look to the Bible, to the images, the stories that you have done for us. Lord, this coming week, as we encounter these areas where we might be looking to serve, to care for others, or to care for ourselves, bring you to our mind, bring you to our thoughts. And we just pray these things in your mighty and wonderful name. Amen.